There's been a lot of talk about the Democrats being energized in the aftermath of Kavanaugh getting on the Supreme Court in the midterms that are coming up, next month, as close as they are. And it's really funny because I took the time to look at a number of these races, particularly ones that are seen as, for example, I'm not looking at Bernie or Warren's races because it's already very, very likely that they're going to get reelected. But the ones that people look to and say this could be what determines who has a majority in the Senate. So you look at the one with Heidi Heitkamp in her state, and then you look at the one with Manchin, which, by the way, he'll go down in history as a senator that made the dumbest political calculations because his whole thing was, oh, if I vote for Kavanaugh, then the person who I'm running against can't say I didn't vote for him. And then you look at the polls, oh, he's still just what 8, 7 points ahead, a couple of digits. I will point out that what I find so disturbing is back when the Tennessee race started with what's his name, Bredston, the former governor, against um, Blackburn, the one that Taylor Swift got involved in with the tweet. I really thought he could carry that hook, line, and sinker because, he had the name recognition of being someone who was an official in that state, who was widely known, for lack of a more wanting term, just was someone that people, if you said his name in that particular state, knew who he was. So I thought, okay, well, he'll probably get into some trouble, when they bring up those social issues because that's all a lot of people care about. But if he has an economically populist message and does the basics, he can keep the Democratic base. So he does the same moderate nonsense I don't like. I want to work with both sides, yada yada yada, and then refuses to say how he'll vote on Kavanaugh, whereas Blackburn, his opponent, outright says she'll support him, or she would have supported him were she, uh, sworn in and elected by the time that nomination was still going on. And, you can talk about whether you like him or not, but the fact is, she took an affirmative stance while Bredston went, I guess I could kind of see it. And that never works because your voters are not going to be excited by Mr. I'm a middle of the road, maybe not nonsense. They want something that is affirmative, yes or no, close the book. Um, and this is the same thing in Arizona, except it's being done in a slight to the credit of Sinma, the Democratic candidate. She did come out and say she was opposed to Medicare for all, which I think is completely idiotic, um, and primarily because of her reason of saying it's not realistic, and it's not going to be realistic if we're running and electing people who denounce it before they even get in office. But anyways, her thing is, oh, I'm gonna, just do the standard Democrat stuff, which I guess that will work with some people. But in saying that, making that comment about realism and what isn't, you do a disservice to yourself because in all of these states there is a group of people who are very serious about their policies, and they lean toward an actual left side, not just, oh, I'm going to vote for the Democrat no matter what. They have values, they have beliefs and things that they hold on to. So when she disenfranchises that group as part of her thing of, oh yeah, that couldn't realistically happen, you're going to get those people to not be excited about voting for you. It's really the Hillary nonsense where, oh yeah, I don't need those voters. I can just pick and choose this group, and then I'll be able to pull this off. And that's why she is still leading in those polls, but it's like the O'Rourke and Cruz thing where more often than not it's a few points away from each other, and they don't even put in the third party person and how many votes they'll get. But going on to the Cruz and O'Rourke race, that's the only one where the Democrat is doing what I like, which is not being apologetic of what you are, because the myth that's been told a lot of times is if you act as a moderate, you can attract voters from both sides. If you say I'm a little bit of this, a little bit of that, people latch onto it. And this is not true at all. In fact, it's almost comical to think so, and I'll explain why. So, for example, if you go on O'Rourke's you go on Twitter and just type O'Rourke's name, and you'll get people who will say he wants to increase taxes, he wants to he authorized killing babies and this other nonsense. We've already been over the conservative hypocrisy. Oh my God, the baby in the womb must be protected. What about the babies that are getting murdered in Yemen right now by the president you put in office? Oh, we don't care about that. So we've been over this before, but the bottom line is that let's pretend O'Rourke said, you know what, I'm going to be pro life and be against any form of gun control. So anybody can just come over and blow somebody's brains out, and there will be no discussion or topic or anything of that kind. I guarantee you that 99% of Cruz supporters or people that leaned more toward Cruz would still lean more toward Cruz because they're going to say, "Oh, that's kind of nice that person is going those one or two things, but I want to I want to keep trying this person here because they would find a way to justify still not voting for him in that instance." And I told you before that if you don't believe that, look no further than the argument of corruption versus not being corrupt. So O'Rourke isn't corrupt, Cruz is corrupt, and the response by the conservative nitwits on Twitter and these other websites is to now make up a fringe story that O'Rourke took money from George Soros, who's become the Emperor Palpatine of the U.S. and just we have to use his name every time we think someone who's liberal or democratic is bought out. So they've created that story not because they can prove it and it's true and it's been verified. It's quite the reverse, but due to the fact that they want to believe their guy is better at everything when he isn't. So that's the reason for that. But also going over to the nonsense with these. Basically, the only thing all of these candidates are doing good so far, at least Bredsden, Sinma, and O'Rourke, is saying we will not support Schumer for another tenure as the minority leader. That's good. Schumer has been very weak, ineffective. That Kavanaugh thing showed that he should have been able to keep Manchin on his side. He should have been able to lobby Collins to switch over, but hey, too little, too late, too stupid, too dumb, and now we have to suffer the consequences for a couple of decades. But going back to what I was saying, that's a good thing they've all chosen to speak out against, those three in particular. I just wish that Bredsden and Sinma would get out of this nonsense about trying to appeal to both sides or trying to basically ignore the progressive branch of the party, because when those people don't come out and that little middle group is kind of like whatever, and the conservatives are strong and aggressive in their messaging, it's going to be a bloodbath. And I think it will be. I think Bredsden will lose that seat to Blackburn. I think Sinma will lose that seat to whatever that woman's name was. And I think that O'Rourke, for as good as he's done, I don't see it because there are too many people in that state that are not thinking critically about any of this stuff, or that make the nonsense I told you about, which is they find a way to justify Cruz's corruption. So it's going to be a bloodbath as far as the Republicans taking stuff over again. I don't think they'll flip Manchin's seat. I don't think they'll flip Heitkamp's seat, but I definitely think those three are leaning more toward Republicans at this point. And it's the only one that I don't hold accountable for that being the way that it is O'Rourke. That's the only one that's gone out of his way to actually give the people of that state something different. Now, if they don't take it, that's on them. So, thank you.